takes several generations of startups to build an ecosystem. In France, I've seen it grow from nothing in 2000 to now 30 unicorns. If you say a generation of a startup is 6 to 8 years, see, France is already the fourth, fifth generation. It started in the 90s. And here it's only the second generation. If you count Pixar as the first, Pixar and the startups that happened at the same time, we are only in the second generation. So it would be great if the startups, I tell them, but create a stock options plan, give some stock options to your employees so that if you exit, all these people that you have can become business angels themselves. And it's not just about money, it's about creating an ecosystem and having some local people who have already succeeded invest small amounts, because this small amount can become big sometimes, and it will give you the appetite to invest in other startups in 6 years, in 8 years. Armenia is an amazing place. It may not look like that, but it's an amazing place to be an entrepreneur in the digital space. Not because there is a lot of state grants, not because there is a local market, but on the contrary, you have to. I will take a comparison to French startups. French startups, they have a market. It's 60 million people. It's not big, but it's not small. It's good enough to start a company. You have a lot of grants. The government, if you have a good diploma and a decent CV, you will get hundreds of thousands of dollars, of euros over 3-4 years. So you will be able to hire someone, do things for a local market. But is this really great? I think what you have here is you have nothing, you are not helped, very little. Hopefully there will be more, right? But you immediately have to think in terms of selling something in the US, which is a big market. And then you see that you have a lot of competitive advantages when you address the US market. You have low salaries, you have labor laws that are much more soft than in the US. So and you are forced to succeed. Nobody's going to help you. So the startups I see here, I have a huge maturity compared to French startups who are, let's wait for the government grant to come this month to pay. We will think about the business model later, because there is no urge. Here there is an urge to succeed, and that's why there is so many successful startups, I think. So if you are in Armenia, learn about entrepreneurship and start something and come see us. We will be there to help you. So I'm born in Istanbul, and my father sent me and my mother to Paris when I was 4 years old, and now I'm 45. So I spent most of my life there, and I spent my educational life there. So I believe you get the culture of a country through the education system. So that's how I would define myself, a French culture, like entirely almost. My baptism name is Piranian, but the Yan was cut by Turkish authorities for reasons that I don't know. I had never heard about Armenia when I was young, by the way. It was some concept, but it was not something that I experienced. Regarding studies, I did business studies, but I especially chose a school that allowed me to do technical, that was half of my course about technical course. I learned some coding as well as business. I had used the internet in the 1996 very early, and I knew I would like to start a business. I didn't know why, what, but I had this feeling that I would be doing something in that. So I did finance studies. I have a finance diploma actually, but I wanted to do a business, and it happened that I started a business during my university time, because I had a training period at the bank and I hated it. So So with another friend who had the same problem as mine, we created a website. That was my first business experience. We started with nothing. It was a games website in 1999 in France, something that there was no such thing as a game. And by the way, the school almost fired me 3 times for willing to start a company during my studies. These things did not exist. The startup culture in France, there was no such thing. But it was an instant success. After 3 weeks, we had, it was bootstrapped with $5,000 of today, roughly. And after 3 weeks, we had already 20,000 members, and after 6 months, it was the top 25th website in France in 2000. It was a very interesting experience. My father was a businessman. He was an international businessman in the true Armenian tradition, let's say, international trade. But he wanted me to be an engineer, so he did everything he could for me not to do business studies. But it was in my genes, I guess. You know, I was selling marbles to kids in the primary school to make money. My first real money was doing parties when I was in high school. I was organizing parties. It was totally illegal, of course. By the way, it ended because the police, in the end, they came to stop it because it was becoming too big. So I had this in my blood to do some business, to make some money with different ideas, and especially with entertainment related. I guess that's why my first startup was about games rather than anything else. I sold my first business in 2004, and then it was a bit chaotic. My father convinced me to take over his company in Turkey, so I went to work 2 years there. We didn't get along, that's why I left Turkey to come back to France. But that was interesting because it was a business. It was about distribution, etc. I learned to negotiate with big supermarket chains, with big European companies. That was an interesting experience. So it gave another side of me, being not purely digital, but also having field experience, I would say, which is very actually rare for digital entrepreneurs. After that, I was on the web. I noticed Web 2. You know, Web 2, the internet that you would say is interactive, like websites that can change form. So I made another video game startup. This time with interactive games, like massively multiplayer games within a browser. It had some decent success, but it was a very complicated market for me. It was my first startup. It was games at the time when nobody was making games. And something I didn't realize is that in my second start, by the time I did my second startup in this field, big video game startup companies, actual video game and not digital or casual game companies had entered the market, and the threshold to make a successful game was much more difficult, much more capital intensive. So the second startup was not a success, but it's okay, I learned a lot. I raised money. That's the first startup I raised money for. And after that, I tried many other things in AI. I tried to set up several AI startups, and that's how I found myself investing. That was my first investment as a business angel in a startup called Video Stitch, which was doing the world's first 360-degree video stitching software before this Oculus was on the market, actually. This was my first investment, and the entrepreneur wanted me as a CEO next to him to help him grow the business, because it's an experience I had. And we grew the business. That was a blast. That's where I raised over $10 million. I set up an office in in San Francisco, 30 developers in Paris. That was a very, very exciting experience. We made software, we sold it to all the Facebooks, the Google. I did a demo to Mark Zuckerberg at some point. Startup investment is probably over the last 70 years the best investment category worldwide. But individually, each investment is incredibly risky because I invested in maybe 50 startups. 2/3 roughly are either closed or will close. But when you invest, you're sure they will succeed. Absolutely sure, otherwise you would not invest, right? But statistically, it's not easy. So you should do it at a time when you can accept to lose, or now it's a new thing, you can invest with others. In the US you need to be an accredited investor, but in other countries I don't think so. It's called syndicates. That is something that I push in Armenia. I'm doing my second syndicate with BANA to allow smaller investors who have not really enough time or experience in investing, invest with people who are dedicating more time to this. First of all, you should think globally. It's not about investing all your money in one startup or 2 or 3. It's about investing something you can afford to lose with the same amount, that is very important, regularly. Because to succeed, it's not about having 100 startups that succeed, it's about having one startup every 10 that pay for all the ones that fail. Even if you love the startup, absolutely, you should say, okay, this is my amount, and don't invest too many times in a row, invest the same amount every year, be regular, and it's like poker, you have to have a line, and then you will succeed after, and keep in mind it takes 6 years to exit in average, so you have to plan. Now I see the exits that I had in companies where I invested 6-7 years ago. To invest in a professional way is also a business. It's not just, it can be something else than a passion, let's say. It can be a business. Because you need a structure, you need to structure your way of thinking, you structure the way you find the deals, etc. It is, because I've been an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. I know that in the beginning of a startup, whatever you say, whatever business model you try to defend, you know within yourself that it's going to change. Whatever chart you show is going to change. So what you try to appreciate, what I try to appreciate is this person, will this person be capable of adapting to the complexity of running a business, or is he someone who is rigid and will be more likely to fail when difficulties emerge? And there is always a difficulty. So also maybe the openness, what could be the management style of this person. So it's easier if the person has already managed other people, but with young entrepreneurs it's hard to guess, so you have to guess. Succeeding is great and bad because after a success you often do mistakes. So, but yeah, learning from your mistakes, it's a process. So let it pass, no rush, and then let the energy push you to do something new. I had the chance to meet Jason Calacanis. So he's a famous business angel in the Silicon Valley. Actually, my video stitch startup had a prize from an event. It was called TechCrunch 50 now, and after that Launch Festival. It was the biggest startup event in the world. And my startup got selected, and I got a course, private course with him. And that opened my eyes about how to write a good pitch. So this is someone I would recommend for business angels to follow. And anything I do here is greatly inspired by what he's doing in San Francisco. Years of losing money is the... Again, I will quote Jason Calacanis, but he says before 25 startups, and it is true, huh? He says it, I had heard it before, but when you start investing, you think, I can be better than the others, but no, you have to fail. That's why you shouldn't put too much money in it, because you will fail, you will make stupid mistakes. And it's only after 25 investments that you start to have a better appreciation of what can succeed and what can fail, because you have seen and you have followed the story of the startups, why things happen, etc. COVID experience helped me rationalize even more my time, because my window to do things, because of my lungs, my capability to breathe had gone down for months. You prioritize extremely what you have to do. So in the end, if you don't have time for anything, just do whatever is absolutely necessary so that others can continue doing what they have to do. So sometimes it's just one call. There is a process, just fill a form. I don't know, if you have not much time, you have to do something, do whatever you need so that others can keep working when you can't. So that's the first thing. And also, it's about having the things flowing. Some decisions can be pushed a long time, for pushed back. Identify those which you can push, and do just the necessary things so that things can continue having a normal course. And it works for a while, like this. It works for me. You have to be hopeful in the future. Don't look at what's going geopolitically. You are not alone. You are part of let's not call it a diaspora, but the Armenians in the world are one. And when it comes to business, I think it's the greatest nation-building thing that's ever happened, this startup thing, because you don't, when someone is investing in your startup, you don't say, are you bullseye, bullseye, I don't know what is that, which city, which clan, which... It's Armenians coming together to help these companies grow, of course, to make money, but that's fine. It's much more interesting and brings people together more than rebuilding Armenian church, a Catholic church, I don't know what church. This is also great. I'm not saying it's bad, but the impact of what we are doing, I think, is orders of magnitudes more important and other ways to help Armenia. So, and we are one in this endeavor.